Welcome back to DBL. As we said, Dr. Payal Kohli is taking over the show. She is back to answer your questions about the coronavirus. Your mic is working?
I think so. Hello?
Everyone? Yes. All right. Let's start with the headlines. You are here to make us feel a little bit better. Now, the big story today, California.
Yeah.
It's a first issue, a statewide order to just stay in place. Should viewers watching in other parts of the country expect that too?
Absolutely. And I wasn't surprised, to be honest. I was surprised that it didn't come sooner. And, you know, New York did something similar this morning as well. And what we're seeing is basically California and New York that got cases before other states. They were one of the early states that got them. So they're just earlier in that timeline. Just like we see in Italy, we see in Spain, we saw in Asia. So I won't be surprised as more and more states start to do the same thing. I do hope that the federal government makes some sort of a kind of uniform decision.
Like a general decision, right.
So that it's not so piecemeal, because I think that that's kind of what causes a little bit of that distress. We hear this and this and this and this.
And it's constant dripping. To be honest, the virus doesn't care about the states. It's going to go where it wants to go. Okay.
And it's like the same thing with the number of cases. Every day more cases. Now it's 14,000. Now it's this many thousand. And it's that piecemeal information sometimes that can increase our level of anxiety, but we really just have to remember this is expected.
Okay, this is all expected. That's really good to hear, actually. Yeah. The other big headline today, the state of Italy's hospitals. This is breaking my heart. I spent a year there. They're completely overwhelmed. It's now reached what they're calling worst case scenario. Viewers are wondering, and I'm wondering, is this where we're headed in the United States? Now, I know there's field hospitals and MASH hospitals and the Defense Protection Act that Trump just invoked.
Yeah. So I think that's the fear. And I think the response that you're seeing with those types of measures is exactly to address that fear, is to come up with contingency plans so that we're not having to use the emergency rooms and having to decide between who lives and who doesn't. So I think with that respect, we're actually preparing relatively well by making some contingency plans, field hospitals, cruise ships as hospitals.
Yeah, hotels, you said.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're headed in the right direction, anticipating, again, a surge of people that are going to need hospital care as this virus continues to spread. And the number of cases that's positive today will reflect how many people will need hospital beds next week.
Okay, and I want to make, correction, it's Defense Production Act, not Defense Prevention Act. But will we see, like, be honest with me, will we see people turned away at hospitals? We don't know.
I hope not.
Okay.
And I think that's the whole reason for the lockdowns.
Okay.
Because if we start doing that extreme social distancing now, that's when we're going to prevent that from happening.
So it's preventative.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a pandemic, Tori, what happens is by definition, you're 4 or 5 days behind the virus. So you really have to be very aggressive and proactive in order to get ahead of it.
I feel you. Okay.
And that's what I think we really need to do. In other words, more states need to lock down so that we can try to get ahead of it, because we're being reactive rather than proactive.
It's funny, Trump is making it more states' rights issue when you kind of want him to just take over at some point. He said, I'm not a shipping clerk. The governor should do it themselves. And I'm like, please help us out.
Yeah.
Let's get to viewers' questions. You are important, DBL Nation. Stephanie, thank you for writing in. She's asking something I'm sure many people are wondering. I can't get tested, but based on my symptoms, my doctor told me I should consider myself contagious and I should self-isolate for 14 days. After that, am I safe to go about my life? Great question, Stephanie.
Yeah, it is. So 14 days after the onset of symptoms, we usually think the viral activity has probably gone down so that you're not a risk to other people. But remember, we're still probably going to be in the social distancing mode in 14 days.
Okay, so Stephanie could come out of her self-isolation but stay in the house probably.
Right.
Okay, someone asked me on Twitter, I just want to get to, if you get the coronavirus, come out of it, like Stephanie was saying, can you get it again?
Yeah, so most likely we think not. And Dr. Fauci, your favorite person,
I love him. Okay.
He says that we have no reason to believe that it's going to behave differently from other respiratory viruses. But the real truth of the matter is we don't know yet.
Okay.
And there have been a couple of case reports of people who've gotten the virus and then a week or two later they have viral particles again in their blood, or they develop symptoms again and they test positive. So it's possible that you could have reinfection if the virus changes or if your immunity goes down.
I feel it.
But as far as we can tell, we don't think that the people who have recovered, because there have been several thousand people,
many people recovering,
that they're going to get it again. We think they're going to be immune.
Okay, that's good to remember. Many people recover. The majority of people recover from this.
Right.
Speaking of spring, Tom in Jacksonville says, how much of a health risk do the spring breakers on beaches in Florida really pose? Tom, I think a lot of people are going to want to know the answer to this.
Yeah, Tom, humongous, because those are the people that are the spreaders. Those are the asymptomatic carriers. And there's a study that came out of China recently that said 4 out of 5 cases that were spread in China were done by people with no symptoms or minimal symptoms.
Wow.
And so the spring breakers are the ones that are going to then get on the plane, bring it home to their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, their teachers, and just spread it all around. So that picture really upset me tremendously.
And every healthcare worker that's putting themselves on the line. Did everyone hear that? That's on spring break. I hope you realize you're putting the soldiers at risk. That's Dr. Kohli saying that. Yeah. Chelsea asks, why are some people getting mild symptoms while others are dying? And that's a great question,
yeah,
too.
So the symptoms really depend on your body's immune response to the virus. So the virus gets inside your lungs, then it takes over your lungs and basically turns it into a coronavirus factory. So,
in the lungs?
Yeah,
okay.
So your lungs start making lots and lots of coronavirus, and that's what creates that cough, that irritation in the lungs. So that's usually the first symptom. Then your body mounts an immune response against that. That's when you start to get fevers and achiness. Now, depending on the degree of the immune response, you can have a low-grade fever or a high-grade fever, and that's really what decides. If you have a full-blown immune response, you get that pneumonia, you end up in the ICU. Whereas if you have a little tiny immune response, then you just feel a little under the weather for a few days.
That makes a lot of sense. That fever can really decide how bad it's going to be.
Immune response, yeah.
Remember, guys, no panic. Just prevention, precautions. We're doing our best. You are such a shero to me.
Thank you.
Seriously, girl crush. We'll be right back.
Thank you.